Hello everyone. Today I am going to recap a Telugu action investigation thriller. Movie opens on a rainy day, where a couple of guys gets out of a car and rushes into a cafe nearby. The cafe owner behaves very humble towards the guys, which tells us that they are very famous around there. The boss is in the car. Here we get to see our protagonist Nandu. Owner sends Nandu to deliver tea to the boss and asks to wait until he finishes the drink. He does the same. But after a few moments, he was hired by somebody to do this. He runs off after shooting the guy. Nandu is an orphan. He does any kind of job to survive. As he cannot go back to the cafe, he searches for work. He runs into a guy who catches Nandu with a gun. He introduces Nandu to his gang. Their leader Athadu sees potential in Nandu and welcomes into the gang. That night they plan to rob a bank. They put a kid about Nandu's age to guard the entrance. They enter the bank, they successfully rob it and get into a van. Not knowing what's coming, the van stops at a place. When they get down, they are surrounded by cops. Turns out the driver double-crossed the gang. The inspector and the drivers split the cash. Cops already beat up the leader to pulp. If they don't escape now, they will be dead. Nandu comes up with a trick. He uses a pin to cut the power off. They use this opportunity to escape from there. Few years pass by. Nandu is an adult now. At a fair, Nandu and his close friend and work partner Molly are planning something. Few moments later the target arrives. He is none other than the driver who betrayed them years ago. Nandu stabs the target and starts running when they notice him. They chase after him, but Nandu escapes. The scene then cuts to a party, where opposition leader of that state Shiva Reddy, his close friend and next head of the party Baji Reddy and underground acquaintance Farooq are gathered at a table. Shiva Reddy has not been in power for many years now. He wants to win this time at any cost, so he devises a plan. He explains the plan. He plans a fake murder attempt on himself, so that he gets the people's attention and possibly wins the next election. The job is given to Farooq to find a professional for it with his connections. Nandu was given the contract. Baji Reddy explains everything on the phone. Shiva Reddy is setting up a big event for the party's promotion. The plan needs to be implemented in the event. The day before the D-Day, Nandu examines the surroundings of the party's promotion event. Molly rents an escape vehicle. The scene then cuts to the party's promotion event. Nandu is waiting in a building with a suitable vantage point. Shiva Reddy arrives on the stage and starts his speech. Nandu gets his rifle ready and aims at Shiva Reddy's chest. He is about to pull the trigger, and somebody else shoots Shiva Reddy to death. He tries to escape as planned, but the car in which they plan to escape gets crashed into a petrol tanker, which is a possible death of his friend too. Cops surround the building by then, so he takes the roof. Cop catches up to him. He aims the gun at Nandu and tries to persuade him, but he has a different plan. He jumps off the building onto a running train and escapes from there. He somehow gets inside the train. Although he is shocked by the unexpected turn of events, he tries to stay calm. He takes a seat. The passenger opposite to him tries to strike a conversation. His name is Parthu. He is going to his village after 20 years. He is from a well-established family of his village. He ran off from his home when he was a kid. The conversation lightens the mood of Nandu a bit. While they are talking, the train stops at a station. The cops arrive at the place. One of them identifies Nandu and pulls out his gun. He aims at Nandu and pulls the trigger, but he shots Parthu instead. The scene then shifts to Parthu's house, where we get to see his fiancée, Puri, decorating for his arrival. Other family members also come into the scene. By their conversations, we can understand that it is a very fun and warm family. Few moments later, Nandu arrives at Parthu's house. Nandu comes to Parthu's house to inform his family about him. Every member in the family welcomes Nandu warmly. They think that he is Parthu. Nandu is unable to speak up and clarify things, due to guilt and lack of human interactions. Meanwhile, Parthu's fiancée tries to have a look at Nandu. When she does, she is instantly smitten by him. Then we get to see the head of the family, Parthu's grandfather. He is strict and gentle at the same time, well respected by family and villagers. He sheds tears of happiness upon seeing his grandson after so many years. The next morning is Puri's sister's engagement. Puri's sister's fiancé comes with his family to fix the dates. Few days pass by. Nandu gets closer to the family and Puri. The scene then shifts to the CBI office. The investigation of Shiva Reddy murder is handed over to the CBI. The case is assigned to investigator Anjaneya Prasad. Back to Parthu's house, where his childhood friends Ramana and Giri come to meet his long-lost friend. All three go out to roam through the village. They stop at a small cafe. They starts talking about their childhood. In the conversation we come to know the cause of Parthu's run from the village. It turned out that a small bet by Parthu cost the life of village priest's son. Currently the priest's family is not in a good position. His daughter is suffering from a heart disease. But the priest believes that God will fix everything. That night Nandu and Ramana visit the priest's house and help him with some money indirectly. The next day, while sitting next to lake, Nandu blurts out that he is not Parthu, and tells everything about what happened and why he had to come to Parthu's house. He is shocked to know all these, but decided to keep it a secret, thinking a guy who helped an unknown family cannot be a bad person. The scene then cuts to the CBI investigation of Shiva Reddy murder. Here Anjaneya Prasad deduces that murder might not be done by Nandu. He comes up with 3 points. 1. The angle of shot is not matching. 2. The gun is not fired as the bullet is still in it. And 3rd is cops surrounding the same building as if they already know about the shooter's position, despite loud noises. Then we go back to Parthu's house where the kids are trying to play with the shotgun. They try to load the run with marbles, and the grandfather stops them from playing with it. Nandu comes in and helps the grandfather to sit. While Nandu puts the gun back, grandfather explains how Parthu's father died. He says that the bullet of the gun backfires when the barrel is not clean. It was the same when his father used it. The kids were counting the marbles they have. It turned out that the marble that kids loaded is still in the gun's barrel. Meanwhile, a servant comes in and informs that Naidu, a goon in the village, is illegally occupying the family lands. Nandu, now Parthu, and his grandfather go there to question what's happening. The arrogant goon doesn't take grandfather seriously. Thus he decides to complain to the cop, unknowing that cop is already in terms with the goon. Parthu stays back, threatens the goon with a gun and takes back the papers. Meanwhile, CBI visits the mortuary to examine Parthu's body. They see that the wound is at the back of the neck. Later that day they come to Parthu's house for investigation. The head officer uses the train reservation form to get the address. He suspects that Parthu might be involved in the crime and tries to get the fingerprints of him without his consent. He asks his crew to bring a card with forensic powder on it. He shows the card and Nandu unknowingly touches it. Later Nandu and Anjaneya Prasad sit for detailed conversation. In the conversation, Anjaneya Prasad asks if he saw somebody who looked tense or suspicious in the train. Nandu replies that he doesn't remember and asks for his card to contact later. The officer reluctantly gives the card, which has Nandu's fingerprints. This way he counters the officer's tactic. CBI returns without proper results. Days pass. Meanwhile, Nandu gets close to Puri. Back to the CBI investigation. As the roads seem to lead nowhere, they opt to go for detailed analysis with timestamps. In the investigation, the head officers became interested in the accident that happened that time where Molly died. They came to examine the area where the accident happened, and found a street where the limit bar for heavy vehicles was found cut. Asks his subordinates for a heavy vehicle parking around the time of the incident. Then they go to the road transport office to find out more. They are surprised to know that the person who booked the car and petrol tanker is the same person, and he is none other than Molly. Back at the Parthu's house, the marriage of Puri's sister approaches. Family needs financial aid for the occasion, thus they try to sell the land. But Nandu doesn't like the idea and stops them from doing so. He approaches the grandfather and hands over a check, because he feels responsible for the loss of Parthu. He doesn't want the family to suffer anymore. The scene then cuts to the prison where the CBI officer visits the gang leader Sadhu. He gives the summary of investigation and asks Sadhu's opinion. He says that it was done by a professional by just looking into the photograph. He also shows a photograph of Molly. Sadhu acknowledges that he used to work for him and says he an escape artist, not the killer. According to the information from him, the investigator comes to know the partner of Molly is with the name Nandu and he saves his money in banks. So they start checking all possible banks to know if a large amount has been deposited in lately. Later that day, Parthu's grandfather comes to the bank to cash the check. Later, the investigation of the CBI leads to the same bank that grandfather came to. While checking the documents, the officer comes across the check given by Parthu's grandfather, which gets officer's attention, as the name written is not Parthu, but Nandu. Thus makes him suspicious of Parthu, but he is still not sure. As he is leaving the place, he sees a missing person poster of Parthu. That confirms that the person who came in Parthu's place is involved with the crime. The cops get to Parthu's house to arrest him. By the time cops reach the house, Nandu is nowhere to be found. The officer informs the family about the original Parthu demise and leaves. Knowing all these, the family is devastated. The family now despises Nandu and curses him. Listening to all this, Ramana gets angry and tells how Nandu helped everybody. Few moments later, Nandu comes back to the family to explain things. Grandfather grabs Nandu's shoulder and takes him into a separate room, hands over the gun and says he acknowledges Nandu as his grandson. Nandu, in a desperate attempt, calls Baji Reddy, threatens him with a recorded tape and asks about the killer. It shows in the flashback where his friend offers an even lesser price for the job. But, to his surprise, Baji Reddy asks Molly to kill Shiva Reddy, so that he get the power. Nandu is shocked to learn all these. He records all this conversation. As he despises traitors, he goes to hunt his friend Molly. On the way to meet Molly, he fell in the eyes of officers searching for him, and commanded his crew not to shoot as he wanted to interrogate further. Despite the command, one officer tries to kill Nandu, aiming directly at Nandu's head. But he misfires and Nandu escapes. Now, the head officer gets suspicious of the officer and interrogates him. Then he learns Baji Reddy bribed him to do so. The escaped Nandu meets Molly in a church and they have a duel. Sometime later, cops come to arrest Nandu. Almost at the end of the duel, Molly gets the hands-on gun Nandu brought. He presses the trigger aiming at Nandu, but Nandu gives the recording to the officer. The scene then cuts to the party office of Shiva Reddy. The political party seems to have won the election. In the celebration, Baji Reddy asks Shiva Reddy's son for his desired position in the cabinet. But the son says he only wants the demise of his father's murderer. Hearing this, Baji Reddy gets chills in his spine. He desperately brushes it off. By that time, Anjaneya Prasad comes to Baji Reddy's office with proof Nandu left and threatens to show it to Shiva Reddy's son. Getting scared of the threat, Baji Reddy shoots himself. The film ends near a lake where Nandu gives Parthu a thank you. The CBI officer Anjanaya Prasad leaves Nandu to his family. Thanks for watching this video. Lots of fun part was skipped in the recap. If you like the recap, please watch the movie. The link is in the description. Please subscribe for more videos like this.